The great crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber gleamed under the twin suns of Nexus Prime. Inside, representatives from 7 different alien civilizations sat around a circular table that had witnessed 1,000 years of peaceful negotiations. The air hummed with translator devices converting dozens of languages into perfect understanding. Ambassador Zethkari of the Valerian hegemony stood at his speaking podium, his blue-scaled hands gesturing at the holographic display floating above the table. The image showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star in what the Council database labeled as Sector 7742. Honorable Council members, Zethkari began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had negotiated treaties for 3 centuries. I present our latest findings on the species that calls itself humanity. Our observation posts have been monitoring their development for the past 50 of their years. The other ambassadors leaned forward with mild interest. New species discoveries always brought a brief excitement to the otherwise routine council sessions. Most turned out to be primitive civilizations that would take millennia to reach spacefaring capability. They have recently achieved faster-than-light travel, Zethkari continued. Crude by our standards, but functional. Our analysts estimate their technology to be early Tier 4 on the development scale. Ambassador Korath of the Threnodi Empire, an insect-like being with compound eyes, clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among his kind. Tier 4? My people were building better starships when we still lived in caves. What makes these humans worth our attention? Zethkari manipulated the hologram, showing images of human spacecraft. The vessels looked bulky and primitive compared to the sleek, elegant ships favored by Council civilizations. They show remarkable adaptability and rapid technological advancement. In less than a century, they progressed from chemical rockets to basic hyperspace travel. Impressive for primitives, commented Ambassador Lisa Andra of the Ethereal Collective, her translucent form shimmering with patterns of light that indicated thoughtful consideration, but still well within normal parameters for emerging species. What is their military capability? The hologram shifted to show human warships. They appeared blocky and utilitarian, bristling with what the Council's sensors identified as primitive kinetic weapons and basic energy systems. Their largest military vessels barely qualify as frigate class by our standards, Zethkari explained. Chemical propulsion, crude armor plating, and energy weapons that would struggle to penetrate even our civilian transport shields. General Vax of the Cortharian military caste snorted through his reptilian nostrils. A species that builds warships with metal plating and chemical explosives. How charmingly primitive. Do they still fight with pointed sticks as well? Laughter rippled around the chamber. The Council had seen dozens of species make their first steps into space, and they all followed predictable patterns. First came basic satellites, then chemical rockets, followed by simple fusion drives and eventually the discovery of hyperspace manipulation. It typically took between 3,000 and 5,000 years for a species to develop from first spaceflight to Council-level technology. There is one unusual aspect, Zethkari admitted. They appear to be developing military technology at a faster rate than civilian applications. Most species focus on exploration and trade vessels first. Humans seem to prioritize weapons. Ambassador Serenthul of the Peaceful Concordat, whose species had not engaged in warfare for over 2 millennia, expressed concern through the color changes in his crystalline skin. Aggressive tendencies in a developing species could pose future problems. Perhaps we should intervene before they become a threat. A threat? General Vax laughed again. Honored Serenthul, these humans barely possess the technology to leave their own star system. Their entire military could not challenge a single Council patrol vessel. What possible threat could they represent? The display showed more images of human civilization. Cities covered in metal and glass, primitive factories producing basic manufactured goods, and space stations that looked like collections of metal tubes welded together. Everything spoke of a species still struggling with the fundamentals of space-based civilization. Their psychology profiles are interesting, Zethkari noted. They seem to assume potential hostility from unknown contact. Most of their fiction depicts first contact scenarios as violent encounters. This may explain their focus on military development. Paranoid primitives, Korath clicked dismissively. They will learn better when they meet civilized species. We have maintained galactic peace for 1,000 years through proper diplomacy and mutual respect. The Council chamber fell into comfortable discussion of standard first contact protocols. They had refined the process over centuries of encountering new species. First came passive observation to understand the species' development level in psychology, then formal contact through carefully chosen diplomatic missions. Finally, gradual integration into galactic society once the species proved capable of peaceful coexistence. I recommend we continue passive observation for another century, Zethkari suggested. Allow them to develop further before initiating contact. Their current technology level would make meaningful dialogue difficult. Agreed, nodded Ambassador Lysandra. Let them mature naturally. Perhaps by then they will have learned to build proper starships instead of those floating metal boxes. General Vax pulled up tactical assessments on his personal display. Their military poses no conceivable threat to Council interests. Standard defensive protocols would be more than adequate should they prove hostile. A single cruiser squadron could neutralize their entire space-based military if necessary. The other ambassadors murmured agreement. The humans appeared to follow the standard pattern of all emerging species: primitive, aggressive, due to their limited understanding of galactic civilization, but ultimately harmless in the broader scope of spacefaring politics. There is one recommendation I would make, Serenthol interjected. We should prepare cultural adjustment programs for when we do make contact. Their apparent militaristic tendencies will need to be redirected toward more peaceful pursuits. We cannot have another warrior species disrupting galactic harmony. An excellent point, Zethkari agreed. I will have our cultural specialists develop appropriate guidance programs. Most aggressive species respond well to proper mentoring and technological incentives. The discussion turned to other matters. Trade disputes between the Threnodi Empire and Kortharian worlds, mining rights in the Outer Spiral, and preparations for the upcoming Festival of Galactic Unity. The humans were filed away as another minor curiosity requiring eventual attention, but nothing urgent. As the session concluded, the ambassadors gathered their materials and prepared to return to their respective homeworlds. The crystal dome above began to dim as the twin suns set, casting long shadows across the ancient chamber. I almost feel sorry for them, Lysandra commented to Zethkari as they walked toward the transport bays. Imagine being trapped on a single world, thinking you are alone in the universe, building weapons because you fear what might be out here among the stars. They will learn, Zethkari replied confidently. All species do eventually. Once they see the benefits of peaceful cooperation and advanced technology, they abandon their primitive fears. Within a few centuries, they will look back on their current militaristic phase with embarrassment. Neither ambassador could have imagined that in the deepest reaches of human space, massive construction yards were already taking shape around hidden moons and asteroids. They could not have conceived that humanity's first true interstellar vessels were being designed not for exploration or trade, but for war on a scale that would make their own military classifications obsolete. The Council retired to their comfortable certainties, secure in their 1,000 years of peace and their understanding of how the galaxy worked. They had no reason to suspect that their carefully ordered universe was about to encounter something unprecedented, a species that had learned to think like prey animals while building the weapons of apex predators. 3 months after the Council's dismissive discussion of humanity, Senior Monitor Kethalana stared at her sensor displays with growing confusion. The Valerian monitoring station on the edge of Council space had detected something that should not exist. Run the analysis again, she ordered her subordinate, hoping the readings were somehow in error. Monitor Apprentice Vorthek manipulated his controls with trembling claws. The results are the same, Senior Monitor. Mass displacement equivalent to a small moon, but artificial construction signatures. Energy output readings they exceed our scale parameters. Kethalana's scale shifted to the deep blue of serious concern. In her 40 years of monitoring deep space, she had cataloged asteroid swarms, ancient derelict vessels, and the occasional rogue planet. Nothing in her experience prepared her for an artificial object with the mass of a planetoid, moving through hyperspace with controlled precision. Distance and trajectory, approximately 6 light-years from our position, moving toward the inner systems at 0.75 light speed. If it maintains current course and velocity, it will enter Council Core territory within 8 standard days. The implications struck Kethalana like a physical blow. No known technology could accelerate such massive objects to near light speeds. Even the Council's most advanced Dreadnought-class vessels, marvels of engineering that took decades to construct, masked only a fraction of what their sensors detected. Send priority alert to Council Command, she ordered. Classification: unknown contact, potential first category threat. Within hours, the alert reached the highest levels of Council military command. Admiral Thisrek of the Zephyrian fleet reviewed the sensor data with the calm professionalism that had earned him command of the Council's rapid response forces. His species had evolved from ocean predators, and his tactical instincts had been honed through centuries of peacekeeping operations. Could this be natural phenomenon? He asked his science officer, Commander Velith. Velith's tentacles writhed in patterns indicating extreme uncertainty. The energy signatures suggest controlled deceleration. Natural objects do not slow down with such precision. This is definitely artificial, Admiral, but the mass readings suggest construction capabilities far beyond anything in our databases. Admiral Thisrek studied the tactical display showing the object's projected path. It would pass through 3 systems containing Council member worlds before reaching the core territories. If it proved hostile, millions of lives could be at risk. Prepare the diplomatic escort fleet, he decided. 3 cruiser-class vessels should be sufficient for initial contact protocols. If this is a derelict from some lost civilization, we may need to render assistance. If it represents an unknown species, we will conduct standard first contact procedures. Admiral, Veloth interjected. The energy output readings suggest this object possesses greater firepower than our entire escort fleet combined. Perhaps a larger force would be prudent? Thisarek considered this. In his long career, he had never encountered a situation where Council forces were outmatched. The thought seemed almost absurd. Our cruisers carry the most advanced weapons and defensive systems in known space. No single vessel, regardless of size, could threaten a properly coordinated Council squadron. We will proceed with standard protocols. The escort fleet, consisting of the cruisers Harmonious Purpose, Stellar Wisdom, and Peaceful Vigilance, departed Council space within 12 hours. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of their respective civilization's technology, equipped with quantum cascade weapons, adaptive shielding systems, and sensors capable of detecting a single molecule across light years of space. Commander Thys took personal command of the mission aboard Harmonious Purpose. As they traveled toward the intercept coordinates, his crew ran continuous scans of the approaching object. With each passing hour, the readings became more impossible. Mass estimate has increased again, reported Science Officer Nethara. Current calculations suggest the object exceeds our largest space station by a factor of 12. Construction materials appear to be metallic composites, but the density readings indicate armor thickness that would require planetary mining operations to produce. Commander Thys frowned. Even the Council's greatest engineering projects, like the massive shipyards of Nexus Prime, required the combined resources of multiple star systems. What civilization could construct something of this magnitude in secret? Any response to our communication attempts? Negative, Commander. We have broadcast standard greeting protocols on all known frequencies. If there is anyone aboard that object, they are not responding. As the hours passed, more disturbing details emerged. The object's propulsion system operated on principles that Council science could not identify. Its energy output rivaled that of a small star, yet it showed no signs of thermal radiation that should accompany such massive power generation. Commander, called Tactical Officer Zephyrin from his station, I am detecting impossible readings from their weapon systems. Clarify impossible, officer. Zephyrin's feathers ruffled with agitation, a sign of deep stress among his people. Sir, if these readings are accurate, this vessel carries enough firepower to sterilize a planet. Multiple weapon systems of unknown design, each individually more powerful than our main batteries, and that is just what our sensors can penetrate. Most of the vessel's internal structure is shielded beyond our scanning capability. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. For 1,000 years, the Council had maintained peace through superior technology and overwhelming force projection. The idea that someone else might possess even greater military capability challenged everything they understood about galactic civilization. Could this be some kind of automated ancient weapon? Suggested Navigator Lithin. Perhaps a doomsday device from the predecessor wars? The construction materials are too advanced, Nethara replied. Metal composites unknown to our databases. Energy signatures that follow no familiar pattern. This technology is not ancient, Commander. It is newer than ours. 2 days into their intercept course, long-range sensors detected the impossible object beginning its deceleration sequence. The energy output spiked to levels that temporarily overloaded their monitoring equipment. "It's stopping," Nithara announced with awe in her voice. "Controlled deceleration from 0.75 light speed to sublight velocities." The precision required for such a maneuver with an object of this mass, Commander Thys found himself facing the most challenging moment of his career. Every instinct told him to request immediate reinforcement from the main fleet. But Council protocols demanded that first contact situations be handled with appropriate diplomatic courtesy. Approaching an unknown species with overwhelming military force could be interpreted as an act of aggression. "All vessels, maintain standard approach formation," he ordered. "Continue broadcasting friendship protocols. If this represents a new species, we must show them that the Council approaches in peace." "Commander," Zephyrin spoke quietly, "what if they do not come in peace?" Thys considered the question while staring at the tactical display. His 3 ships, pride of the Council fleet, suddenly felt very small against the enormous energy signature approaching from the darkness between stars. "Then we follow protocols," he replied with more confidence than he felt. "We are representatives of galactic civilization. Whatever this is, whoever built it, they will learn that the Council responds to challenges with unity and strength." As the unknown object continued its impossible deceleration, emergency sessions convened on every Council world. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations found themselves facing something beyond their understanding or control. In the depths of space, 3 Council cruisers maintained their intercept course toward an encounter that would shatter everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. The hyperspace emergence signature lit up every sensor aboard the 3 Council cruisers like a newborn star. Commander Thys gripped his command chair as the gravitational waves from the transition washed over his fleet, causing minor systems fluctuations despite their advanced stabilizers. "Mother of the Deep," whispered Science Officer Nithara, her normally composed voice cracking with disbelief. "Commander, you need to see this." The main display activated, showing the object that had just dropped out of hyperspace 2,000 kilometers ahead of them. Commander Thys had prepared himself for something large, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of the human vessel that now dominated his field of view. The ship stretched nearly 12 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a dark metallic gray that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Massive weapon turrets dotted its surface like the spines of some deep-sea predator, while sensor arrays and communications equipment created geometric patterns across its armor plating. The vessel radiated an aura of controlled violence that made even the Council's military vessels look like pleasure craft. "Status report," Thys managed, forcing his voice to remain steady. "Mass readings confirmed at 47 million tons," Nithara reported, her hands shaking as she operated her controls. "Energy output?" "Commander, their idle power generation exceeds our maximum emergency output by a factor of 8. I cannot even estimate their potential at full combat power." Tactical Officer Zephyrin's feathers had flattened completely against his body, a primal fear response his species had not experienced in millennia. "Sir, I am detecting over 200 separate weapon systems. Each main turret alone appears capable of penetrating Council dreadnought armor. And that assumes their technology follows our theoretical maximums." The communication officer suddenly jerked upright at her station. "Commander, incoming transmission. They are broadcasting on our emergency frequencies." "How did they know our communication protocols?" Thys asked, though he suspected he did not want to hear the answer. "Unknown, sir. The signal strength is overwhelming our receivers. They are having to filter it down to prevent system damage." "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled to life with perfect galactic common, spoken in a clear female voice that carried the confidence of absolute authority. "Council vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Leviathan. We are honored to finally make formal contact with the Galactic Council. We request permission to approach Nexus Prime for diplomatic discussions." Silence filled the bridge as the implications struck everyone present. The humans knew Council language. They knew Council communication frequencies. They had been listening. Commander Thys activated his own transmission systems, hoping his voice would not betray his growing alarm. "Unknown vessel Leviathan, this is Commander Thys of the Council Diplomatic Escort Fleet. We welcome you to Council space. May I ask how you came to learn our communication protocols? The response came immediately, and Thais could hear what sounded like amusement in the human captain's voice. Commander Thais, your people have been broadcasting on these frequencies for several decades. We have been monitoring Council communications as part of our preparation for first contact. We mean no offense, but operational security suggested we learn about you before revealing ourselves. Decades. The humans had been watching and listening for decades while the Council dismissed them as primitive. The revelation sent ice through Theis's bloodstream. Captain Chen, your vessel is impressive. May I ask about its classification and purpose? The Leviathan is humanity's first Titan-class warship, Chen replied matter-of-factly. She was built for deep space operations and first contact scenarios. We wanted to ensure we could defend ourselves if initial diplomatic contact proved unsuccessful. A warship. They had sent a warship for first contact. Not an exploration vessel or diplomatic transport, but a ship designed specifically for combat. And they called it their first Titan class, implying others would follow. Science Officer Nathara caught This's attention with urgent gestures. Her display showed sensor readings that should have been impossible. Commander, they are scanning us. Their sensors are penetrating our shielding as if it does not exist. They have complete tactical assessment of our vessels, crew complements, and weapon systems. The human ship was reading their defenses like an open book, while their own sensors could barely penetrate its outer hull. The technological disparity was not just significant, it was absolute. Captain Chen, Thais tried again. Your scanning systems are quite thorough. We would appreciate if you could limit your sensor sweeps to passive observation only. The amusement in Chen's voice became more obvious. Commander, our scans are passive. We are not actively probing your vessels. Our sensors are simply more sensitive than what you may be accustomed to. We already have all the information we require. In seconds, this human vessel had learned everything about Council military technology that had taken millennia to develop. And they spoke of it as casually as commenting on the weather. Captain, if I may ask, what are your intentions regarding Council territory? As I mentioned, we seek diplomatic contact with the Council leadership. We have been preparing for this meeting for quite some time. My government has authorized me to begin formal negotiations for human membership in galactic civilization. The words were diplomatic and proper, but this could not shake the feeling that he was listening to a predator, politely asking permission to enter a pen full of prey animals. The human vessel's mere presence demonstrated technological superiority that should have taken thousands of years to achieve. We will be honored to escort you to Nexus Prime, Thais replied. Knowing he had no choice in the matter, this ship could probably destroy his entire fleet without effort, and they both knew it. Excellent. We will follow your lead, Commander. And Commander, thank you for maintaining such professional composure. We understand this first meeting may be somewhat surprising. Somewhat surprising. Thais almost laughed at the understatement. His entire worldview had just been shattered by a species the Council had written off as primitive 3 months ago. As the escort fleet changed course toward Council space, emergency transmissions flooded the communication channels. News of the human Titan-class vessel spread throughout Council territory at the speed of light, carrying with it the terrifying implications of humanity's true technological capabilities. On his bridge, Commander Thys stared at the massive human warship following his formation and wondered how many more ships like it existed in the darkness beyond human space. The Council had assumed they knew everything about galactic civilization. They had been wrong about everything. The humans had been watching, learning, and building, and what they had built was beyond anything the Council had imagined possible. As the journey to Nexus Prime began, Thys realized he was not escorting a diplomatic vessel to a peaceful first contact meeting. He was leading a demonstration of power that would change the balance of galactic civilization forever. The age of Council supremacy was ending, and it was ending with the arrival of a species that had learned to think like prey while building the weapons of gods. The emergency klaxons echoed through the crystal corridors of the Council chambers as Ambassador Zethkari rushed toward the crisis meeting. He had never heard the ancient alarms activated in his 3 centuries of service. They were reserved for threats to galactic civilization itself. The Mai chamber buzzed with panicked conversations. In dozens of languages, as representatives from all 7 Council species gathered around the central holographic display. The image showed Commander Thiss's tactical report, transmitted directly from his escort fleet, and the readings were impossible to believe. "Order! Order!" shouted Prime Chancellor Vorthek, his crystalline form flashing urgent red patterns. "We must maintain composure in this crisis." General Vax burst through the chamber doors, his usually pristine military uniform disheveled from his rapid journey from the military command center. "Honored Council, I have confirmed the tactical assessments. The human vessel outclasses our entire home fleet in every measurable category." A stunned silence fell over the chamber. Ambassador Lysandra's translucent form flickered with disbelief. "That is impossible. 3 months ago, these humans barely possessed basic spaceflight capability. How could they develop such technology?" "The evidence suggests they have been developing in secret for far longer than we realized," Zethkari admitted, his scales shifting to the deep purple of shame. "Our intelligence assessments were inadequate." Admiral Serenkai of the Peaceful Concordat stood abruptly, his crystalline skin cycling through colors of extreme agitation. "The readings show energy weapons that could penetrate planetary shields. A single vessel with the capability to threaten entire worlds. This violates every principle of galactic civilization." General Vax activated his personal tactical display, sharing the complete analysis with the Council. Estimated crew complement 15,000 beings. Armor plating equivalent to 40 meters of compressed battle steel. Weapon systems. Honored Council, their main batteries alone could destroy any vessel in our fleets. The mathematical reality struck the chamber like a physical blow. For 1,000 years, the Council had maintained peace through careful balance of power. Each member civilization possessed fleets capable of defending their territory, but not conquering others. The system worked because no single species could achieve overwhelming superiority. The humans had shattered that balance on their first day in Council space. "How many more vessels like this do they possess?" asked Ambassador Korath, his compound eyes reflecting the fear that filled the chamber. "Unknown," General Vax replied grimly. "They refer to this as their first Titan-class warship, implying others exist or are under construction. Our intelligence networks have no data on human military production capabilities." The revelation sent another wave of panic through the assembled representatives. If humanity could build multiple vessels of this magnitude, they possessed the capability to conquer the entire Council Confederation. The careful diplomatic balance that had preserved peace for millennia meant nothing against such overwhelming force. "We must consider immediate defensive measures," urged Admiral Serenkai. "Recall all fleets to homeworld defense positions. Activate the emergency mutual defense protocols." "Defense against what?" General Vax asked bitterly. "Our combined fleets could not challenge this single vessel. If they have built more ships like it, our military forces are obsolete." The stark truth hung in the air like a death sentence. Every military strategy, every defensive plan, every contingency the Council had developed assumed technological parity among galactic civilizations. The humans had appeared with such superior capabilities that traditional military thinking became meaningless. Chancellor Vorthek attempted to restore order as several representatives began arguing simultaneously. "We must focus on understanding their intentions. Commander Thiss reports they are requesting diplomatic contact, not making demands or threats. Yet," added Zethkari quietly, "they request diplomatic contact yet. But they approach our capital world in a vessel designed for planetary siege warfare. The message is clear enough." Intelligence Chief Kethmara of the Observation Corps activated her secure communication link to the hidden monitoring stations throughout Council space. "I am receiving reports from our deep space sensors. The human vessel's approach has triggered automatic defense protocols on 17 worlds. Panic is spreading throughout Council territory." The reports continued flooding in from across Council space. Stock markets crashed as investors realized the economic implications of obsolete military technology. Several member worlds had begun emergency evacuations of their orbital facilities. 3 separate civilizations had placed their fleets on maximum alert status. "The psychological impact may be as devastating as the military threat," observed Dr. Lith-Andra, the Council's chief xenopsychologist. "Our citizens have lived for generations believing Council technology represented the pinnacle of galactic achievement. Learning that we are primitive compared to a species we dismissed as backward will destroy confidence in our institutions," finished Chancellor Vorthek. The social implications could destabilize our entire confederation. General Vax pulled up historical precedents on his tactical display. In the ancient predecessor wars, technological surprise was often decisive. Civilizations that fell behind in military development were conquered or destroyed within decades. We may be witnessing the beginning of a new age of galactic warfare. The chamber fell silent as the representatives contemplated the magnitude of their situation. Everything they had believed about their place in the universe had been overturned in a single day. The Council, which had seen itself as the guardian of galactic civilization, now appeared as obsolete as stone tools. There is another consideration, Zethkari said slowly. The humans have been monitoring our communications for decades. They know our languages, our protocols, our weaknesses. This first contact was not spontaneous. It was planned. The implications struck the Council like successive hammer blows. The humans had studied them, learned from them, and prepared for this encounter while remaining completely hidden from Council detection. The level of operational security required for such a massive deception suggested military thinking far more sophisticated than anything in Council experience. They have been watching us like prey animals studying predators, whispered Ambassador Korath, learning our patterns, our capabilities, our vulnerabilities, and now they reveal themselves only when they possess overwhelming superiority. Emergency communication links activated throughout the chamber as member worlds demanded immediate answers. The Threnodi Empire recalled their trade fleets from outer territories. The Kortharian military caste activated their ancient fortress worlds. The Ethereal Collective began emergency sessions to consider abandoning physical space entirely. We are witnessing the end of an era, Chancellor Vorthek announced solemnly. The age of Council supremacy is over. We must now learn to coexist with a species that could destroy us all. The great crystal dome above the chamber began to darken as the twin suns set. But for the first time in 1,000 years, the approaching darkness felt ominous rather than peaceful. Somewhere in space, a human warship was approaching Nexus Prime, carrying with it the power to remake galactic civilization according to humanity's design. As the emergency session continued into the night, one question dominated every conversation. What did humanity want? The answer would determine whether the Council faced conquest, subjugation, or something even more terrifying, irrelevance in a galaxy where their 1,000 years of advancement meant nothing. Compared to human ingenuity and determination, the age of prey animals pretending to be predators was ending. The real predators had finally revealed themselves. The massive shadow of the UES Leviathan fell across the orbital platforms of Nexus Prime, like the wing of some ancient god of war. Council citizens pressed against viewing ports and observation decks, staring in awe and terror at the human vessel that dwarfed everything in their space. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the busy traffic of Council space part before them, like schools of fish fleeing a shark. Her tactical officers provided constant updates on the defensive formations hastily assembling around the capital world. Captain, reported Commander Torres from the tactical station, I count 47 Council warships taking defensive positions around Nexus Prime. Their weapons are powered but not targeted. Classic intimidation formation. Chen nodded thoughtfully. They want to show strength while avoiding provocation. Probably the best choice available to them. What's our assessment of their combined firepower? Negligible threat to our primary systems, Torres replied matter-of-factly. Though their coordination and discipline are impressive. These are professional military forces, just technologically outmatched. The main viewer showed the Council's orbital facilities in detail, massive space stations, elegant shipyards, and the gleaming crystal structure that housed the galactic government. Everything spoke of advanced civilization, but Chen's trained eye noticed the defensive limitations. Beautiful architecture, but vulnerable to modern warfare. Captain, called Communications Officer Park, the Council is requesting permission for you to dock at their primary diplomatic station. They have cleared the entire facility for our arrival. Chen smiled grimly. The entire facility? They were taking no chances with contamination or security breaches. Smart, but it also showed how afraid they were. Grant permission and transmit our docking requirements, she ordered. Standard diplomatic protocols, but maintain full tactical awareness. We are still in unknown territory. As the Leviathan approached the diplomatic station, its massive bulk made the Council structure look like a child's toy. Emergency force fields had been extended around nearby platforms to protect them from the gravitational effects of the human ship's passage. The docking process took 3 hours. Council engineers struggled to adapt their systems to accommodate a vessel never designed to interface with their technology. Through it all, Captain Chen waited patiently, understanding that this delay was part of the psychological impact humanity needed to establish. Finally, the airlock cycled open, and Chen walked through the umbilical tunnel toward her first face-to-face meeting with alien civilization. Her dress uniform bore the insignia of Earth's United Space Command, and her bearing conveyed the confidence of someone who had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. The council chamber had been hastily reconfigured to accommodate human physiology. A chair sized for her species sat at one end of the great circular table, facing the 7 ambassadors who represented galactic civilization. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Chancellor Vortex stood as she entered, his crystalline form flashing formal greeting patterns. Captain Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome you to Nexus Prime. We are honored by this historic first contact between our peoples. Chen took her seat and studied the assembled representatives. Fear and fascination warred in their alien features, exactly as the xenopsychology teams had predicted. Honored Chancellor, distinguished ambassadors, she began. I bring greetings from Earth and humanity. We have long looked forward to this meeting. Captain, Ambassador Zethkari interrupted, his scales shifting to colors of barely controlled anxiety. May I ask how humanity achieved such remarkable technological advancement? Our observations suggested a much lower development level. Chen smiled, and several ambassadors visibly flinched at the expression. Human smiles, she had been warned, could appear predatory to other species. Ambassador Zethkari, your observations were accurate regarding our civilian technology. However, you failed to account for our military development programs. We have been building Titan-class vessels for the past 15 years. The revelation hit the Council like a physical blow. 15 years. While they debated whether humanity was ready for contact, the humans had been constructing weapons that made Council fleets obsolete. But why? Asked Ambassador Lysiandra, her translucent form flickering with confusion. Why focus on military technology instead of peaceful exploration? Chen's expression grew serious, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of species-wide determination. Because we prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. We assumed the galaxy might be hostile to newcomers. We built the Leviathan and her sister ships to ensure humanity's survival, regardless of what we encountered among the stars. Sister ships? General Vax asked, though his tone suggested he dreaded the answer. The Behemoth is currently conducting deep space trials. The Colossus will be completed within 6 months. The Titan production program calls for 12 vessels in the first phase. 12. The number fell into silence as the Council representatives absorbed the implications. Humanity was not just building one impossibly powerful warship. They were creating an entire fleet that could conquer known space. Captain Chen, Chancellor Vortex said carefully, what are humanity's intentions regarding Council territory and member worlds? Chen leaned back in her chair, projecting the casual confidence that came from absolute superiority. We want what every species wants, Chancellor. Security, prosperity, and respect. We offer membership in galactic civilization, but on equal terms, not as junior partners requiring technological uplifting, but as equals contributing our capabilities to mutual benefit. The phrase "our capabilities" hung in the air like a veiled threat. Everyone in the room understood what human capabilities meant in military terms. The Council has maintained peace for 1,000 years through careful balance of power, Admiral Serenkai noted. Your vessels represent a destabilizing force that could trigger galactic warfare. Chen's smile returned, and this time there was no warmth in it whatsoever. Admiral, humanity learned long ago that peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of overwhelming force controlled by rational actors. We offer the galaxy true peace, the kind that comes when potential aggressors know the cost of aggression would be absolute. The psychological impact was devastating. For a millennium, the Council had believed in peace through diplomatic balance. The humans offered peace through strength, so absolute that resistance became meaningless. What guarantees can you offer that humanity will not use its technological advantages to conquer or subjugate other species? Zethkari asked desperately. Chen stood and walked to the great viewing wall, gazing out at the Leviathan floating in space beyond. Ambassador, we offer the same guarantee that has prevented major warfare on Earth for over a century. When the cost of aggression exceeds any possible benefit, rational beings choose cooperation over conflict. She turned back to face the Council, and her next words reshaped their understanding of galactic politics forever. We did not build the Titan-class vessels to conquer the galaxy. We built them so that nobody else could conquer us. The difference is crucial, but the effect is the same. In a galaxy where humanity exists, large-scale warfare becomes economically impossible. The session continued for 8 more hours, but the essential transaction was completed in those first moments. The Council offered humanity immediate membership at the highest tier, complete with voting rights and territorial guarantees. They offered technology sharing, trade agreements, and cultural exchange programs. They offered everything except what they most feared to lose, their illusion of superiority. Captain Chen accepted graciously, knowing that 3 more Titan-class vessels were already under construction in the hidden shipyards of the outer system. Humanity had prepared for the worst and found exactly what they expected: a galaxy of civilized prey animals who had forgotten that predators existed. As the formal ceremonies concluded and the first human ambassador prepared to take his seat in the council chambers, one question echoed through the minds of every alien representative. In a galaxy where humanity built dreadnoughts as diplomatic gifts, what did they build when they actually intended to fight? The answer, like so many things about humanity, would have to remain terrifyingly unknown.